So, continuing along with our discussion from earlier, where we covered the circle of knowledge, we're now going to be moving on to what we call the circle talk. So, Brian?
Thank you, Kevin. So I'm going to open up this next segment, and it's going to begin with this circle that you see. We're going to call this your circle of wealth. That's a circle that represents all the wealth you're going to have in your lifetime. Now, some people's is larger than yours, and yours is larger than other people, but there's at least one thing we all have in common as it relates to our circle of wealth, which is what? What do you want to happen, Kevin?
I want more of it.
Really?
I'm sure they do too.
So, you see, I'm such a great advisor. Look at that. I made it grow already. Okay? Now, actually, there's another conversation that you may have heard when it comes to your circle of wealth, and it goes something like this. Oh, where is your money? Oh, you can do much better if you just move it over to us. And we know how to have that conversation too, but what we want to do today instead is we want to give you a little insight into the unique way that we look at your circle of wealth. I would divide your circle into 3 areas. First, your accumulated money. That is the dollars that you have saved and are currently saving. And then lifestyle money, that is the dollars that you are spending to enjoy your standard of living. And then the final area is what we call transferred money, or that is money that is leaving your circle of wealth unknowingly or unnecessarily. So let's go back to accumulated money and start by looking at that a little more closely. So what we're going to do for the course is we're going to create a mock case, which Kevin is going to be the person. So Wealth Tech Rebels, if you don't like it, you can blame Kevin. No, I'm just joking. What I mean there is that we're going to use some numbers and in a scenario which Kevin is going to represent, and that should take us through the course. Of course, your numbers and your scenario is unique. Everyone's is. And so this is just for you to get sort of an idea of how it might be for you if we were applying these principles and this understanding to you. Okay? So Kevin, the question is this. How well do you feel you are prepared for retirement? Meaning, on a scale of 1 to 10, 1 being not at all ready and 10 being ready to retire, let's say tomorrow, where do you say you fall?
Okay. And, well, I'm going to say I fall right around a 7.
Okay. So let's look at a 7. Okay. So, Kevin, let's see. We're going to put Kevin in here. Kevin Client. It's not his real name, obviously. All right, Kevin, how old are you?
So I am 37.
37. Very good. And you'd like to retire at 65?
That's the dream.
Okay. Well, some people want to be earlier than that. Some people want to be later than that. This next button here, which is life expectancy, is a very important thing because, for sure, if you're planning your finances, you don't want to outlive your money, right? No. So we always go with a longer life expectancy. If you have a spouse, it is a longer joint life expectancy that we have to plan for, right? Kevin, are you married?
Yes, I am.
Okay, so that would be joint. So you are 37. How old is your spouse?
She's 5 years younger, so she's 32.
Okay, 32. And that means that technically your joint life expectancy is 93. All right?
Okay.
That's just the average, of course.
Yep.
Lots of people might live longer than that with the joint life expectancy of your ages.
She's definitely
so we'll go with 95, but certainly you could even go further if you wanted to. Now, what is your combined income? I mean, yours and hers.
Combined, hers and I's is $100,000.
All right. And what do you have for savings right now?
For savings, we have we have an equities account.
Okay. We can put these in separately if you like. Okay.
Okay.
So you have some equities, some stocks, right?
Yep.
And how much are those?
Well, that's $15,000.
15,000.
Yeah.
And those are just in a regular account, right?
Yeah.
I mean, taxable account.
It's regular equities.
Individual equities, not mutual funds, right?
Right.
So we would consider that high risk because individual companies are obviously a higher risk than when you're spreading that out.
This is my little side
and is it accessible without paying taxes or penalties?
No, I have to pay taxes.
You'd have to pay taxes, right? Okay, great. What else do you have?
I have a 401k.
All right, 401k. And what's about the balance on that right now?
Oh, right now it's about 85. Was a little more, unfortunately.
Okay, that is definitely a tax-deferred account, right? You haven't paid the taxes on that yet.
Right.
These are mutual funds?
These are.
Okay, so mutual funds tend to be more or less medium risk, right? And again, not accessible without taxes and penalties in that case.
Right.
Anything else?
Well, we have we started a 529 plan.
Okay.
They can head for college. So.
Right. Now, of course, 529 is not something you're going to spend for yourself. That's something you would spend for your kids, right?
Okay. Right.
So we're not going to actually include this because we're looking more or less at retirement savings that would be available. Just things that would be available for retirement.
So,
okay.
That's very specifically targeted.
And that's already set aside for the kids.
Okay.
And their education.
Okay.
Okay. Anything else?
That's it.
Okay. How much are you saving right now on an annual basis?
Okay, so I'm saving. Well, I'm putting about $4,000 a year into my 401k at work.
Okay.
And they're matching it to $2,000.
Okay,
right?
so 50 cents on the dollar.
50 on the dollar.
Okay, so
and
that's 6.
Yep.
Anything else?
And I've got about another $1,000 a year that I'm putting into the 529.
Okay, so again, we're not going to count that here because that's going to the kids. Right. But you're saving for yourself $6,000 a year.
Right.
Okay.
The equities is just kind of like my side account. It's not something I'm putting specifically money into.
Sure. Now there's a little inflate checkbox here. We're going to leave that there because we want your savings to increase at least by the rate of inflation. We're going to assume, right?
Makes sense.
What do you think you could earn on your accounts?
Oh, these days I don't know, but
6, 7.
Yeah, 7.
Maybe as an average.
7. Yeah.
Okay, 7. Once you get into retirement, obviously you got to be a little more conservative. So, what do you think you might earn there? 5?
Yeah, let's go with 5.
Okay. Now, of course, inflation is always a very important thing to consider, right? When we're trying to grow our money, because inflation is the hurdle rate, if you will, that we have to get over before we're even making money, right? So, net of tax, whatever we're growing, it has to be above that hurdle rate, that inflation rate. And I just so happen, if I click this button, it brings up a history of inflation, which is a little scary, actually, if you look at the numbers here. If you can see that, Wealth Tactic Rebels, look at this. Look at these double-digit numbers, and what was that during? If you look at the years, 1917, 1918, and so on. Right. That was World War I, right?
Yep.
And then the stock market crash, the Great Depression, and then through World War II. These are the numbers of the U.S. government reports, right? Occasionally there's a negative year where there was deflation.
Yeah.
Those were bad times, of course.
Definitely.
If we go through to today, you'll see that the numbers in the last 10 years or so have been a little more stable. But even back in the 80s, right, we had some very high numbers here, double digits. So inflation is, again, a very important factor. And for you, what year were you born?
1982.
1982. So that was not a good year. That was 6.2. If we go through to today, and I click on today, 2018, your lifetime inflation rate is 2.79. Okay?
It doesn't feel like that to me.
It feels more than that, right? Yeah. But so, in any case, if you were, let's say, a little older, let's say you were born in the 60s, and I clicked on today, you'll see that your inflation rate was over 4%, right?
Yeah.
So I don't like to use an inflation rate that's below 3 for that reason. 4 might be high, but on the other hand, again, we want to be careful here. So let's just go with 3 as an in-between number. And then your tax rate, at your combined income level, we're going to assume your federal tax rate of about 18%. If you live in a taxable state, maybe it's a little higher than that. We could go with, let's say, 22%. Okay. The next button here, defined benefits, would be where you have a pension or even Social Security that we can put in here.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah, well, don't have a pension. They don't really do that anymore. And
Just got the 401k.
401k and not really counting on Social Security either.
Not counting on Social Security. So we won't put anything in there. If you were expecting to receive money from, let's say, an inheritance,
Right.
Or the Mega Millions jackpot, we could put that as future assets. Or future expenses, large expenses. For instance, if you knew you were going to pay for a wedding, we could even put college in there. What I like to do in terms of this is kind of what I call the down and dirty version of your financial plan. Okay?
Right.
In other words, we're not trying to be too detailed here. We're trying to just get an idea, a rough idea for you, so you can have something to kind of hang your hat on.
Right.
Is what I'm doing today going to get me to where I want to go?
Right.
Meaning, will I be able to retire by 65?
Yeah, just to lay the landscape.
If I just keep doing what I'm doing,
Yeah.
right? All right. So current lifestyle minus what I'm saving, you're living on $73,000. Okay, and obviously we're going to have to increase that as the years go by our rate of inflation, so that your standard of living is maintained. All right, you with me?
Yep.
All right, so here we go. Let's look at it. Click this button, and what we see is if you keep going the way you're going, okay, by the time you get to retirement at age 65, you will have a nest egg of $1.3 million.
Well, sounds good,
You like that?
Yeah, $1 million, I'll take it.
Okay.
Yeah.
The problem is that in order to live like you live today, you will need $167,000 in that first year.
Oh, wow. That's a lot more.
That is a lot more. In fact, it is more than 10% of your balance, if you notice.
Yeah. Ouch.
Have you ever heard of a thing called the safe withdrawal rate?
Yes.
What is that?
Well, that's taking out just enough of your growth so that you protect your base so that you don't lose your money. So your money's, right?
Yeah, so that in a normal portfolio situation, if you're invested in
Right.
the stock market, you would not run out of money.
Right.
Unfortunately, it's nowhere near 10%, and this is more than 10%. It's more like 3%.
Yeah.
So, and even that's not guaranteed. So, clearly, you can see what happens is that within a few years, by the time you're age 70 and approximately a half, you are out of money.
That's not good.
Not so good,
No,
right?
I don't want to run out of money.
I don't want to run out of money, especially when you're only 71. Okay.
No.
Your life expectancy was 93, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
That's going to make a rough retirement.
So, what do? Well, these 5 buttons across the top here are what we think of as, or many people think of as, the solutions to their financial problems. Okay? So let's look at the first one. Increasing the rate of return. The rates of return we used were 7 and 5, okay?
Right.
So let's suppose for a moment that I'm a really great advisor, or you're great at investing,
Sure.
and maybe you could get, I don't know, pick a number. You could get more than 7.
I can get 9.
You can get 9. Okay. Let's see if 9, in fact, will get you through. Okay? I'm going to click on this, and what we see here on the right side of the screen is that got us a whopping 2.5 more years.
Okay, I get to live a little longer.
Well, okay, so you got to age 74, basically, right?
All right.
Not comforting.
No.
You with me?
No.
Okay. Here's another question. If the rate of return is the solution to your financial problems, what rate of return would you have to earn in order to not run out of money?
I don't know, but that would be pretty risky, wouldn't it?
You're onto something, Kev.
Oh, no.
Okay, let's click calculate and see what it does, okay? In fact, you would need to earn a rate of return of 13.28% from now until retirement.
My lucky number.
13? You would then have a nest egg of $5 million, and you could withdraw your income all the way to 95.
So my question for you is, though, you're saying I have to earn that 13% every year?
Every year with never a loss.
Never a loss.
All right? Now, I got a bad news for you. Madoff is in jail, and nobody else is guaranteeing 13%.
That is a problem, isn't it?
Okay. So, what can we do? Well, clearly, rate of return is an issue. It's not going to solve our problem by itself. Now, there is this button, Save More, but how much are you saving now? Are you saving as much as you can?
Maybe I could.
You're saving 5%, right?
Yeah.
4 or 5%. So
it's already stretching it.
You're saving 5% of your gross. So that's more than a lot of people are saving. I'm not saying it's necessarily enough, but let's come back to that for a moment, because if we adjust this number, it means we're actually changing your lifestyle, right?
Right.
Now, in some cases, that may be necessary, right? Yep. And in this case, with you, it might be necessary, but let's just hold off on that for a moment. Because I got to tell you something. Most people that I meet, they don't want me to have that job of telling you to reduce your standard of living so that you can have more later.
Yep.
All right?
That's usually true.
What does that bring us to? It brings us to the third button, which is work longer. So currently you're working until you're age 65. What if you did work longer?
All right. Well, I really want to push myself, let's say 72.
Okay. So another 7 years. That should make a difference, right?
Yeah, that's a lot.
Let's click calculate. And what that shows us is that, again, on the right side, all right, that got you all the way out to 79 and a half years old from 71.
So I work for 7 more. I still only get to have
you only get
7 years of retirement
Yeah.
before I have to find a way to
unfortunately
disappear.
You only got about 7.5 years. All right, so that's not the answer. Again, I have this magic button that says, how long would you have to work to not run out of money? You want to even see that one?
Work myself right into
Some people these days want to work, right to the end.
Well, I mean, there is that, but I would think that if I was in retirement, I wouldn't want to be actively working. I just want to be doing what I want to do, the fun, enjoyable, rewarding stuff.
Well, that may be, although let's suppose that you're one of those people who really likes to work.
Right.
And they just want to work. What if you're not healthy and you can't work?
True.
Right? I mean,
True.
A lot of people have health problems as they get older. So if you did work longer and you were able to work until you could fund your retirement, you'd have to work to age 82. All right? Now, there are some 82-year-olds out there working, but they're healthy, right? And who knows if that's going to be your case. But if you did work to 82, then you could have $4 million by age 82 and $4.5 million, and you could live to 95 and not run out of money. Okay?
Yeah.
Maybe it would work, maybe it wouldn't work.
Right.
Okay. Now, here's our button over here, spend less, the fourth one. Currently, you're spending just about $14,000 a month. Okay?
Okay.
At retirement.
Didn't want to know that number.
At retirement, right? Now, some people say to me, well, I won't need as much money when I get to retirement.
Right.
Why is that?
Oh, so my house I've downgraded, the kids are out.
Sold your
My house
house.
is paid off. I'm good.
Moved to Florida, whatever. You're paying less in taxes. There's no more kids to pay for, no more mortgage. Okay, so maybe you could live on less. How much less do you think you could live on?
Oh, I don't know. Let's say
Today you're
50.
living on 73.
You're living someday, right? So
Okay.
like 65, let's say.
Okay. So, like if you did a 10% withdrawal, that'd be 63. So about almost 10%, right? 63, you're saying. 65. Let's do 10%. 63, okay? If you tighten your belt by 10%, which is a lot, right?
Yep.
What does that get you? It doesn't get you anywhere.
Nowhere.
Okay.
You mean I had to cut my circulation off for nothing?
It just didn't make a difference, okay?
Oh.
because that's 10% less in retirement, not 10% less today. So it's,
Right.
you see what I'm doing here.
Right.
How little would you be able to live on to not run out of money? How much would you have to live on? You don't even want to see that number?
I don't know.
I'm going to scare you here, okay? You'd have to go from $13,000 a month down to $3,600 a month.
And that's at
That's future dollars.
future dollars, so that's a lot less, really.
It's 1/4 of what you're living on today. Can you imagine?
That's a pretty big lifestyle adjustment.
Yeah. Okay, so you see, that's definitely not the solution. And finally, that last button over here, change the inflation rate. Well, we're not the Fed, right? We can't influence inflation. We just have to live with it. So those are the traditional solutions. Now, unfortunately, as we just saw, at least in and of themselves, separately, they are not, in this case, and for many people, they are not going to get you to retirement, right? So many people come into my office and they say, if I could just earn a little bit more money, if I could just work a couple of years longer, it'll all be fine. Guess what? For many people, it's not the answer. What is the answer? That kind of begs the question, I guess, right?
Yeah, that's what I'd like to know.
So let's go back now to our circle of wealth. So that was your accumulated money, okay?
Right.
But remember, we've got two more areas here. We've got lifestyle money. Well, again, how much effort do you want me to spend with you trying to get you to reduce your standard of living today so that you can have enough for the future?
Well, not much. My wife would say none.
Right, exactly. That's what I find. And you know what, to tell you the truth, I don't want that job either. What I would like to do is say, if that's not the case, and you don't want to change your standard of living, and who wants to change the standard of living? Unfortunately, for most people, they only know about those two areas. They know about their accumulated money, which we just looked at, and that's a problem.
Right.
And they know about their lifestyle money, and they don't want to adjust that.
Yeah.
It's kind of stuck between a rock and a hard place. You follow me?
Right.
So that's where our third area of the circle of wealth comes in. That is our transferred money. Now, again, our transferred money is defined this way. It is the money that's leaving your circle of wealth unknowingly and unnecessarily. Let me give you an example. Suppose that you pay $1 in tax that you didn't have to.
Right.
Okay? If we were able to somehow recapture that dollar, right, or prevent it from going out,
right,
we could not only take that dollar and apply it, but we could also maybe invest it and turn it into $2 or $3 or $4 over time. You with me?
Right.
So it's a much bigger number when you look at it that way. If we could do that, if we could find some money that's leaving your circle of wealth and bring it back to the table, what could we do with it?
Well, I'm sure we could put it in somewhere in that pie there, right? One of those three areas.
Yeah, in other words, we could redirect it to your accumulated money and perhaps, if things are really good, direct some to your lifestyle money as well. Okay. You like that?
I like that. My wife has a bigger shoe budget.
Okay. So let's go back now to your circle of wealth. So what we're talking about here is the area called wealth transfers. We've just defined that for you. And as we were saying, it is not just the dollar that you lose, but it's also what those dollars could have earned for you over time. And that's what we call opportunity cost.
That's a big number.
When we consider opportunity cost now, it's a much bigger piece of the pie.
Yeah.
Okay? Also, let's look at this chart, which I think is quite interesting. But if, in really being diligent about this, we would need to look for all the possible places where you could be losing money, unknowingly and necessarily. These are called wealth transfers, and they happen in these 6 areas. It could be in the way your mortgage is structured. It could be in the way that your taxes are being done, or your tax planning, your qualified plans, in areas of protection where you could lose money if you're not protected.
Yeah.
College funding, if you're not aware of how to fund college most effectively. And also how you make major purchases over your lifetime. Okay?
Yep.
Now, in working together, we're going to look at all of these, and in our course, we're going to look at a number of these. I just want to give you one as an example. All right? And that one is called tax history. Now, have you ever seen this chart before?
That's a crazy looking chart.
Yes. So what this represents is the top tax brackets in the U.S. since the income tax began. By the way, it began in 1913 as a temporary tax, which means it's about to go away, right?
Oh, I'm sure it is.
Probably not. Yeah.
I think the government's hooked on that.
The government is hooked on that. All right. So what I want to point out is a couple of things. There are a number of spikes on this chart, okay? The first spike is right here in 1918 of a 77% tax if you made over $1 million. Well, I don't know how many people were making over $1 million in 1914, but 77% tax is quite something.
That's really
Okay?
high.
Then the tax rate went down, and then it went all the way back up, all the way to this spike here of 94% in 1944, which was incredible, and that was only if you made $200,000. So notice what happened here. They not only raised and changed that tax bracket tremendously, but they also really, really changed the threshold to get into that top tax bracket, right?
Oh, I'm sure there's a lot more at 200,000.
More people,
Yeah.
right? Okay. We got another little spike here, which is 92% over 400,000 in 1952.
Right.
And we got a spike here of 77% over 200 in 1969. And finally, this is a hardly noticeable one, but I pointed out for a reason, which you'll see in a minute, 31%. Wait a minute, 31? That's much lower, right?
Yes.
But it's 31% if you made only how much? $82,000 in 1991. Well, in 1991, how many people are making $82,000?
Well, there's a lot more.
A lot more.
It's
All right?
Much, much bigger number.
That was our closest we ever came to a flat tax, which was under the Ronald Reagan years.
Yeah.
So, but still, notice what happened. Everybody's in the top tax bracket there. Okay?
Right.
All right. So, here's something else to notice. These spikes occurred during what times in history?
Well, it would look like they occurred during major events, mostly during major wars.
Major historical events, specifically wars. So this first one was World War I. The second one was World War II. By the way, we had the stock market crash and the Great Depression that followed it, during which they raised taxes.
Well, they got to pay for it. Yeah.
Right? And the Korean War, and the Vietnam War, and even Gulf War I over here. Now, interestingly enough, Kevin, you've been telling me that you're saving primarily in your 401k.
Right.
Right? Your retirement is out here somewhere, off the chart.
Sure.
Okay. What is our national debt right now?
Oh boy, I don't think I want to know the number. What is it? 3-something trillion?
It's over $1 trillion, and if we go out to see where it is actually live today, it actually shows us that, in fact, our national debt is a whopping $22 trillion.
Oh, my God.
Okay? It's mind-blowing. And so you're saving right now in what we call a tax-deferred program, right? You haven't paid the taxes on that. What if the government needs more money and you're in retirement?
You mean what if? You mean when?
When, right? Because as we know from history, if history is any lesson, is it possible that they're going to have to raise taxes the next time another war comes along or a Great Depression comes along or something to that magnitude?
Yeah, of course.
Right.
They're going to have to pay for it.
And not only that, but we've recently had the Great Recession and Gulf War I and II, and have we really raised taxes to pay for it the way we have historically? We haven't, right? We've been kicking the can down the road. Meanwhile, your retirement is in a fully taxable position. All right?
I see what your point is.
Let me show you one more thing. Here's the average. Here's the average of all these years. The average tax bracket is actually 57.69. Are we anywhere near that right now?
Not too close.
Not so close, right?
Right.
So here's your share of the money. You've got $125,000 saved right now, okay?
Mm-hmm.
If you had to pay taxes at the average rate, right, because the next war came along or something came along and they raised taxes,
Right.
look what happens to your share versus what the IRS is going to get.
Well, that's Not so good.
Ouch, right?
Yeah.
And you thought you had been saving taxes.
Well, that's what my accountant told me.
This is... That's why you're a wealth tactic rebel. Because now you're going to see things differently.
Seeing things differently.
Right?
All right.
The truth of the matter is that your savings are actually at risk of whatever they decide to do with the tax rate. Which, when we look historically, you say, oh my gosh, anything can happen. Right? Is that a potential wealth transfer?
Yes.
Yes. So wealth tax rebels want to avoid a significant, major possible wealth transfer. If you're saving all your money into a qualified plan, remember this chart, right? Is that something we need to address, especially for people who have an uncommon income, as we talked about in our last segment? Right. Okay. Moving along. So I like to simplify things and say there's two kinds of people in the world. Those who are in control of their money and those who are out of control of their money. Which would you rather be?
Well, I would have control of my money, of course.
Clearly. All right. And so what we really try to do is put you in control of the money. If you're not in control, who is in control? The banks, the lending institutions that you do business with, right? Okay. Now, here's a little interesting idea, but do you remember learning tic-tac-toe when you were a kid?
Not specifically, but I kind of have the idea.
But you did learn it as a kid.
I did learn as a kid.
Yeah. Okay, yeah. All right. Now, here's a question. When you were learning, who won? Was it you or the person teaching you the game?
Oh, it definitely was not me.
It was not you. It was the teacher, right? Here's another question. The financial institutions that we do business with, do they teach you the rules of the game?
No.
No. And so as a result, who keeps winning, them or you?
Well, when you put it like that, I see your point. Yes, they're winning.
Exactly. So the point of being a wealth tactic rebel is that we are going to show you through this course many of the rules, which currently those financial institutions are not teaching.
Right.
Okay? So that you'll be able to play more effectively. So back to your circle of wealth. Now, when anybody thinks about their circle of wealth, they mostly think about one piece of this pie, that is their savings and investments, and they forget about the other possible pieces of this pie, which are things like interest on debt or non-deductible debt, taxes, opportunity costs, as we were just talking about, and of course their lifestyle. And therefore, because they're only thinking about one piece of the pie rather than the whole circle, in order to make their circle grow, they really have to do what? Have to take on a lot of risk.
Yes.
Right? Do you want to take on a risk?
Not really.
Maybe not, because you might not win that game, right?
Right.
Okay. Why is the golfer here? Well, the golfer's here for a very good reason. Suppose for a moment that we're going to send you to play in the Masters. Okay?
I could do that.
You want to play in the Masters?
Sure.
And you get to pick one of two things. You can pick any player's swing, right?
Okay.
Whoever you like. Or you can pick any player's clubs. Which are you going to choose?
Well, as much as I'd like the clubs, I think I'll take their swing.
Okay, why is that?
Well, because shiny clubs that I don't know how to use are useless.
All right, exactly. So in other words, Tiger can take my clubs and he can still play a pretty good round of golf. Okay, but if I take his, I can guarantee you I'm not winning the Masters. Okay, so it is the swing that is the most important part here in winning the game.
Yep.
You got to have a club to play the game well.
Yep.
So what do financial institutions do? They produce financial clubs, right? Do they work on the swing with you? No, they don't. What are we doing with Wealth Tactic Rebels? We are working on your swing before we fit you for the clubs.
Absolutely.
A lot of clubs out there, right?
Yep.
But if you don't know how to swing it, what good is it going to do you?
Not much.
All right. So we're going to come back to the clubs and the swing and work on your swing first. Back to the circle of wealth. So your circle of wealth is going to grow over time just because of the time value of money, right? However, if you're not paying attention to these other areas, the problem areas, those are going to compound right along with your circle and, of course, undermine the growth of your circle overall. Right. Quite unfortunate, right? So what can we do about that? Well, back to where we started with the three areas of your circle. You know, some people say, well, Brian, here's my financial statement. You look at that and give me a better financial club. You got a better club, I'll be happy to look at it. Okay. That's what I call the accumulated money approach, right? And when we can do that, I know how to do that. And I can say, all right, well, this club is better than that club. That's kind of like saying, well, you got a nice 7-iron, but I've got this driver over here. Look how shiny that is. Isn't that beautiful? Yeah. Okay. I think you should buy this driver right here. This is what's going to hit it the furthest, right?
Right.
Problem with that, of course, is that, as we know, which club loses the most balls, the driver or the putter?
Well, it's not the putter.
Not the putter. It's definitely that driver, although it feels great to use the driver. So when it comes to accumulated money, we already know that it's not about the club, is it? It's about the swing. Because if you know how to use that putter well, that's how you're going to win the game ultimately.
Right.
Okay. So we could start by looking at the clubs, but instead, what else can we do? Well, we could look at your lifestyle. We already said you don't want to change your lifestyle.
Right.
If you can help it. Okay? So maybe that's not the area. If we look at then, therefore, the third area, your transferred money, what could we do with that? Well, let me give you an example. Okay? So you said you're making 100, you're saving 6, and you're living, and let's say you're going to earn 7%. So what is that the equivalent of? That means in the first year, you're going to earn about $420 of interest. Okay? And of course, you're living on $94,000 minus what you're saving.
Right.
Okay. So, let's suppose that Wealth Tactic Rebels, working through this course together, we're able to find just 5% of the money going through your fingers on an annual basis that is being lost currently, unknowingly or unnecessarily. And we're able to recoup that, right, and redirect it to your circle of wealth. What is that the equivalent of? Well, 5% is the equivalent of $4,700, which is the equivalent of a 78% rate of return on your savings. You see that? On the 6,000. It's just mathematics.
That's a good return.
Okay? Now, that's quite a return. Now, here's what I like is the best part. Everybody listening? Listen closely. How much risk did you have to take to get that 78% return equivalent?
Ah, well, there's the key to that, right?
That's
because we're taking money that we were already losing it and just recapturing it. We're not taking any.
Zero risk. It was just money going out the window.
Right.
And you got a 78% equivalent return. That's the power of finding the transfers. Ready to find some transfers, everybody?
Let's go.
All right.
I'm good.
Okay. So, one more little analogy to help you here. So, there's 2 ways to fill up a bucket.
Right.
What do the financial institutions tell you to do? If you want to save more money, just do what?
Save more money. Put more in.
Put more in, right? Keep pouring that spout water in. Oh, it'll fill up eventually. Well, we all know that's not easy, right? Because that means changing your lifestyle again. The second way that you can fill up a bucket, and a lot more easily, is plug the holes. The things we're talking about here, for instance, non-deductible debt, opportunity costs, taxes, and interest, those things are like holes in our bucket, our savings bucket. When we plug those holes, eliminate the transfers, now our bucket's going to fill up even if we're just pouring in a little bit.
Okay. Makes sense.
Like that?
Yeah.
All right, very good. Are you ready to find some transfers?
I'm ready. Let's
All
help
right.
our Wealth Tactic Rebels find some more transfers in our next module. Brian, do you want to give them a little tee up for what we're going to be talking about in Module 2?
Well, in our next module, we're going to really start to focus on and clarifying the different types of tax options that you have for when you're saving or investing. It really is not that complicated when you break it down the way we're going to break it down in our next module. All right? And that's going to shed a lot of light on on a lot of the options that people have.
That's very important. A lot of people have that problem, the taxes. That's
Especially the higher up you are
Yeah.
in your income earnings, taxes become more and more a problem.
as you go on. Yeah.
But at any income level, it can be a problem because, right, every dollar counts, as we just saw.
Absolutely. Thank you for joining us for our first module today, the Circle of Knowledge and the Circle of Talk. And next time we'll talk about the taxes. And Brian, thank you for helping coach us through today. And
My pleasure, Kevin.
fantastic. We'll see you in the next module.